finding a very distinct line in this is just about like searching for a needle in a haystack.
Hey everybody, Charles Jr. here for another rock counting adventure. This adventure, well, not so much of an adventure. We're sitting up here at Glass Butte. We're going to have a little conversation with Emory Coons. Some of you know him, some of you will wonder who the heck is he. And don't worry, I know him, and sometimes I wonder who the heck is he. So, I got a couple questions to ask him because these are questions that I hear on a regular basis. And I thought we'll just ask him while I'm here. So, Emory, why are there claims at Glass Butte?
Well, basically because the magnetite's running through the obsidian, which can be found only at Glass Butte. It's one of the 2 to 3 places that the magnetite crystals goes through another material that can be worked into jewelry, and it's just happens to be here. A lot of different places have magnetite, but not jewelry grade magnetite. It can be it's in most obsidian wherever you go, but this particular place has some of the most extraordinary colors of blues, purples, reds, and it's just happens to be where I pretty much grew up. So,
Well, how many claims are out here?
well, as far as I know, there are roughly, there's 4 of them that are around the pond, and there's probably about 10 more back towards the entrance, but they're on a different material than the magnetite. The 4 that are around the pond are on the magnetite because it's where it most prevalently comes out. And
Well, what's the deal with those claims around those backside of Little Glass Butte?
I'm not for certain on that. The BLM keeps telling me that they've got Richard Morris over there that has those claims, and went ahead and he's been filing in Prineville rather than in Lake County, where the head of the, you're supposed to file in the county seat you're in, which means Lake County. So I'm not for certain. I've only got to talk to Richard a couple times, and as far as I know, all I've seen him pull out from back there is a little bit of mahogany and some rainbow obsidian, which is totally different than this micromagnetite that's causing what's known as fire obsidian. So it could be a really interesting time to figure out. I'm not even sure how the BLM is going about anything with that on there for his claims. Now I know Leanne, she has the what's written down as the Kemp claim, and she's got the red ribbon. She's got the magnetite on the claim. Most of that, there's a couple trenches there that were put back in the 1950s. And it's relatively a good spot because it has magnetite colors going through the obsidian. A lot of people don't know that the actual layer that's going through is the magnetite, and it hasn't been explained to them, so when they go out to get obsidian, they just get obsidian. They don't know that some of it has it, some of it doesn't. There's different grades of it, so you pretty much have to figure out which vein you want to go ahead and travel after.
So how long have you been here?
I've been collecting here, well, on the east side of the claim. It was 1972 that my parents brought me out, and well, this one has potential. It has the lines going across to show if there's magnetite. And you just have to break down to each line to see which one's going to be the brightest line. And sometimes that's an easier said than done process. But a lot of times what will happen is that if you see the line on the outside of it, I mark around it with aluminum to basically trap it with the saw and then grind down to the color layer of the magnetite crystals, and it can go ahead and color shift in most any light setting that you have. And if you go ahead and go through it, sometimes you don't get anything. I mean, you basically have to stay 4 to 6 sheets of paper above it when you're grinding down to it, and then you can shape your stone and trap it into a nice piece of jewelry. Sometimes the magnetite line has a variance of color and pattern. Sometimes it's just a solid color. I want to go in on the other side to see this other line. Oh, there was one that got to check real quick. Doesn't seem to be the particular line I'm looking for. Go down to the next line. And this stuff is still pretty dang sharp. So it looks like I might just have just a light color in that one. Not much at all in that one. The one I found earlier was a really nice one. And of course it went into the tumble bucket. So, any other questions there?
Well, it's just fascinating sitting here watching you work this stuff, because as the most everybody watching, they don't have the experience like you do working the obsidian and being able to work the way down to those ultra thin magnetite lines.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest ones to do. Sometimes you have to take a chip off of it and hope for the best, that you don't go through it or you break it at the right angle. A lot of times I try to take a chip off of it to see if it has the correct looking band in there, and then break down to that band to see what color I'm dealing with, so it lets me know what particular hole or flow to go to. This particular one does have magnetite in it. There's green right there. There's a little bit of mahogany in it. I'll see if I can go ahead and crack this to where I can get a better view for you. Whoops.
Nope, went through
I
it.
triangled it, and,
Here.
and there will be a piece on both sides.
Yeah, let's see if I can get this for you guys.
But there's also another layer down here that I see shining underneath here that's nothing but solid orange.
So there's the fire on this piece. Let's get this one
That's
here.
the micromagnetite.
And it's hard to get it going in the camera so the camera can see it.
Right. There's a lot of examples online that have already been cut and polished into stones, and, and this is just what it looks like in the rough before it gets worked. You know, there's a little trial and error to get some of this. Sometimes you can read the lines on the outside of the rock, and sometimes you can't, because it's got a coating on the outside of it, or cortex. And that's why most of it goes through a tumbling process to just take it off for running around for 45 minutes or so, just to clean it up, to see where the magnetite's running through it without having to destroy or take a chip off of the rock. A lot of times I'll take a little chip off of it and I'll hold it to the light just to see where the lines are running through, so I don't go ahead and take a big old chunk out of the middle of it. But you know, it'll all go ahead and basically is knapping grade to go ahead and make arrowheads out of, no matter what size the chip or the chunk you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for somebody being new, what would you recommend them to do when they come out to Glass Butte?
Well, first I'd go ahead and have them get a hold of the Bureau of Land Management and get a map that shows where the claims are. I hand out maps when I run across people on the claims and let them know. Most of the time they're looking for rainbow obsidian, and the magnetite and rainbow are two different critters. You just, the rainbow is in normally larger layers or thickness layers, but it doesn't give the intense colors or the patterns that you can get from the magnetite. So that could go ahead and determine the size or shape of the piece that you're going to go ahead and want to work with. A lot of the pieces that we work with are small because that's the way they come out of the ground, is just small pieces, which sometimes are easier to work that way, and it's kind of hard to break them, but a lot of times people will go ahead and they'll try to use the whole back end of the hammer to go ahead and knock a chip off. And I just pretty much stick to one little corner so I can go ahead and try to control a chip that's meant to go a specific way and not destroy the rock when I'm doing it, so I can take a chip off and then I can see if there's a band going through it. And that looks clear, but that doesn't say that there's nothing in the rest of this quarter of the rock down here towards the tip. It just means that I could have broke with the lines and it's going through the backside or at a different angle. I mean, you never know, you can't predict what a volcano is going to do for color lines and anything that way. But normally, if you do find a seam that you find a piece of magnetite in, it's normally going through that seam. So it's pretty much stick with the seam if you want to stick with that color.
Well, you've given us some good information here. Appreciate your time, Emory. Thank you for allowing the Mrs. Jaws Jr. and I to spend some time up here with you. And everybody, just remember, everyone's life is an adventure. Then there's mine out here having a nice little conversation with Emory Coons.
Yeah, be safe and don't cut your fingers too much.
This is the Adventures of Jaws Jr. Have a good one, everybody. See ya.